Hi students, Ms. Jarvis here. Today we're going to talk about absolute value. Absolute value is the number's distance from 0 on the number line. So for example, if I gave you a problem like absolute value of -3, I'm looking for the distance of -3 from 0. 1, 2, 3. So you can see that that distance is 3. Now if I were to then ask you to find the absolute value of +3, we can take a look at this one and count its distance from 0. 1, 2, 3. It's also 3. So you can see that the absolute value of opposites is the same value. Okay, now we're going to talk about when do you need absolute values? Well, you must use absolute values when we're talking about distance. So for example, if you traveled 6 miles, you would never explain that you traveled a -6 miles. Even if you walked backwards or drove your car backwards, you can't travel a negative distance. Distance will always be positive. So you can use absolute value for distance. Another example is when you're talking about how much you owe. Although as an integer, you might say you owe $5. That would be your integer. However, if I said, how much do you actually owe, you would say to somebody that you owed $5. And that's because the word owe is already negative. So there's no reason to say you owe -5. You would owe simply $5. So you could write I owe $5, or you could say I owe $5. Now the next one I want to talk about is depth. Depth, once again, is already negative. So if you were at a depth of 30 feet in the ocean, perhaps scuba diving, as an integer, you're at -30 feet. And that would really describe your elevation, -30 feet. However, if I said, what is your depth? You would say that my depth is 30 feet. So your depth is 30 feet. You could also say that your depth is the absolute value of -30 feet. So as you can see, O and depth are already negative. So although your integer might be described this way, if you use the word O, you can't have a negative in front of it. It's already negative. Same thing with the word depth. Depth is already negative. So although your integer may be negative, if you use the word depth, you can't have a negative unless you use absolute values. What about the word change? If we're talking about a change in weight, for example, if somebody lost 5 pounds, that would be our integer. However, if I were to say, what was the change? Well, the change was 5 pounds. The change was 5 pounds. It's the absolute value of -5. Because you wouldn't say the change was -5 pounds. The change was simply 5 pounds. So those are the things in which we must use absolute value. Distance, what you owe, depth, and change. Now, down at the bottom here we have, what do you not have to use absolute value for? Elevation and temperature are good examples. Elevation can be negative. You can be swimming at a negative elevation of -30 feet in the ocean. Temperature. Temperature can be negative. You can have a temperature of -5 degrees. All right, and last but not least, what about absolute value bars that have a negative sign outside of the bars? What does that mean? Okay, what it means is that it wants you to give the opposite of the absolute value. Okay, so if inside your bars you had -2, well, the absolute value is 2, and the opposite is -2. So that would be your answer. All right, students, I hope that this has helped you today. And remember, if you have any further questions, please ask.